my experience of the church was not something just shiny all the time. I saw my parents hurt by the church, but I think what I saw in my family of origin was that they stayed in the Big C church. I can hold nuance.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge
Yeah.
part of a six's work, right? Is to be able to parse out the difference between a feeling and a thought. I'm not always aware of the expectations of others, but I am aware of the difference between um, anxiety that comes from like a performance-based community versus a
Yeah.
more contemplative community. It is my deepest yearning that all shall be well, that we are held, that there is good here, that it's gonna be okay.
Welcome to the Wholehearted Enneagram podcast, the Enneagram for real life. Here is where you'll find conversations where faith meets story and strategy for lasting transformation. I'm your host, Amy Wicks, here to help you find wisdom and wholehearted rhythms for moments that matter most. Whether you're learning your type or deepening your spiritual formation, these conversations will remind you that the Enneagram shines a light, but Christ is the transformation. Today, I am thrilled to have a sort of a friend. We don't get to live near each other, but I get to watch Sarah Jackson from afar, whether it's as she serves her church or in this new, not so new, but a rebirth of her spiritual direction work. And I am looking forward to diving into your world, Sarah. Thank you for coming in and sharing your unique perspective of living as a six and the spiritual direction element in line with the church, the local church.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Amy. I'm glad to be here.
I want to get to the story right away about discovering your personality type. We've heard from your husband, Jason, and we even unpacked a little bit about the dynamic of a 1 and 6 in marriage, which is really fascinating. And I'm sure
Is that the
we'll
word
get to
he
yours.
used?
It's great. It was good. It was such a great aspect. But where did you discover your type? What did that look like? What's that journey been?
Yeah, in 2013, I was introduced to the Enneagram through some people that I worked with. I was working at Asbury Theological Seminary, and we actually were offered a retreat. And so this
Oh, that's
nun,
amazing.
Sister Barbara, took us on a 2-day retreat and kind of gave us the whole overview, which is so beautiful because to experience it in that verbal format was so powerful.
Incredible.
And
Yeah.
so it took me a little bit to type myself, which I hear is common for sixes.
Yes.
And then I read the wisdom of the Enneagram and wept while reading the six. So essentially
Mm.
just decided, well, that must be me. But I
Yeah.
was surprised. I didn't know I had so much fear. And then I started recalling situations in my life where I did things that for me just felt like, oh, this is just what you do in this situation. And I looked back at it and went, you're so afraid. You're so
Mm.
afraid. And so, yeah, it was revelatory and revolutionary. So I have been
Yeah.
studying it ever since, have done a certification in Enneagram harmony triad theory. So that kind of brought a
Yes.
nuance versus just the arrow theory. So I love it.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. I think I would take every Enneagram course out there if I'm
It's
allowed.
endlessly interesting.
It is. I'm
Yeah.
constantly learning a new element. I'd love to hear because you did say that sixes sometimes can be hard to type or to find their type. And I think that's what I've been surprised in the last year in my experience of coaching that six has been a harder type for
Mm,
people to land on. And I'm commonly seeing a 4 or 3 even being a
sure.
mistyping direction and sometimes a 9. But I'd just be curious for you as you looked at the different types, what are the other ones that resonated in that journey before you were comfortable with going, the six, it tells the story. It gives
Yeah.
some the explanation.
Yeah, for sure the three. I played with the two a little bit, but it was just kind of
Yeah.
that. I think what I've realized as a six is I like people to be helped, but I'm not the two that needs to be the one who'd like to help people. I just want them
Yes.
to be helped. And so that was a good distinction for me. The four,
Yeah.
I think, as far as just endless curiosity and the ability to kind of go deep into something, except I'm going deep into my thought life, not my emotional life. And so that was a distinction eventually too. So yeah,
Yeah.
probably the three, two, four element. Yeah.
Yeah. The heart triad, interestingly enough.
Oddly enough, and I'm very much suppressing emotions. That's the last thing I go to. So that was, yeah, maybe I just looked at it and thought, oh, good for them. Wish I could be like that.
Right? It's
Yeah.
so yeah, that how that plays out. And I do in the wholehearted community, I'm constantly inviting people to have you gone through the wholehearted way, or have you just
Mhm.
seen a description that was 1 inch deep and assigned
Yes.
yourself a number?
Yep.
Because to your point, getting to hear it in a narrative tradition and in an intentional retreat atmosphere,
Mhm.
that's pretty big. And most of us
Yeah.
don't give ourselves to the
Yeah.
process of that.
Yeah. I don't know if you like the WEPS inventory, but that inventory helped me see what other types that I like, what percentage of other maybe motives or behaviors do I also connect with? And that helped me see, oh, I have a super strong seven wing. It's as almost as strong as what I identify with the six. And so that helped me nuance my type as well.
Yeah,
So yeah. Anyway,
that's
recommend
awesome.
that if you want to parse it out a little bit. Kind of helps too to be like, oh, I have a parent that's this type. So I have a parent who's an eight, and
Right.
so I have some eight-ish tendencies, but I'm not an eight. That's not my motivation. So yeah.
Yeah. Or even how the counterphobic
Hmm.
aspect of the six would show up for you based
Yeah.
on that overlay.
Yeah, it really bugs me when the stereotype of the six is this like hand wringing, someone who just doesn't get out much and wants to just everybody be safe,
Yes.
and I can be like that, but I don't like that
Sure.
part of myself. So I don't
Yeah.
constantly identify with that. If anything, I kind of get aggressive when I'm worried about something. So you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's important because the stereotypes do put us in a box.
Yeah.
And I'm an advocate of how about we just find the box you're in because it gives us the way out and
Mm,
gets us
yes.
through to the other side for transformation's sake,
Yes.
not in staying in these patterns that are maladaptive and not helpful at the
Right,
end of the day.
right, right. Especially if it's just continuing to like dismiss other centers. For me to like continually
Yes.
dismiss my emotional center is not helpful to me. So I really do need to find that connection with both the three and the nine in me and
Yes.
integrate wholeheartedly. That's, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Okay, I wanted to give a lot of airtime
Mm,
to some of what is a very current and common conversation, which is our relationship with the church and local
mhm,
community.
mm,
Is the leadership healthy? Are they
mhm.
trustworthy? Who do we seek out in guidance and shepherding? There is a lot of questions and a lot of conversation around this. And I know that while your journey has been unique, you also have a long time history with the
Mhm,
church and in serving in the local body. So
mhm,
I just give us some insight. Start us there. And I know yours is unique as a six, but then also in the
mhm.
positions you've held. But how do we lean into this space where we're supposed to be real and vulnerable and it should be safe, but it isn't always?
Yeah. So a little background for me is that I grew up in a Protestant, mostly evangelical, but sometimes more mainline denominational experience. And we lived in a few different states. And so my experience of the church was not something just shiny all the time. I saw my parents hurt by the church. But I think what I saw in my family of origin was that they stayed in the Big C church and
Yeah.
had an appreciation for just an ecumenical appreciation. There wasn't like, well, this is the way that everyone should do it. And so I do appreciate that. I think that
Yeah.
formed me, obviously, as a six, someone who's looking for, okay, well, where's the safe place to be? It has been somewhat either maybe not easy, at least possible for me to differentiate the church as an institution from the people that make up leadership in the
Mhm.
church or a church community. And so for me, it's been helpful, even with working with people, regardless of their type, with church hurt, is instead of just saying, like, the
Mhm.
church has hurt me, can you name people? Can you talk about actual relational experiences? And then can we go from there into like, okay, where's their brokenness institutionally, et cetera?
Mhm.
And so I think that for me has been important because I've seen terrible things. I've also
Yeah.
seen some of the most beautiful things of ever and
Yeah.
have experienced both ways I've contributed to brokenness in the Big C
Mhm.
church. And there are people who would say, that's someone who hurt me. That's someone who did not show me what it's
Mhm.
like to be, a person of God. And yet I've also experienced healing from people in the church too. So I think that's seeing that kind of play out in a way as a child, but also having just a very fortunate experience with parents who showed me both grief and
Mhm.
loyalty. That became important for me. I know
Like,
that seven wing is also just, it's really, I need to know that there is hope. I really
yeah.
don't like bad cop stories or it's all going down like from the inside because I'm like, no, we have to see at least one person who's gonna like stand strong. I love Moses.
Yes.
Moses is like my favorite story, favorite character in
Yes.
scripture because I'm like, he was scared. He went in there scared, but he's like, we're gonna do this and I will help
Yeah.
guide you and get you out of this terrible situation. And so I personally just, while I can
Mhm.
see like, oh my gosh, there's all these fires everywhere, what's gonna happen? I think that wing of mine helps me hold trust, like something
Mhm.
good is gonna come because it can't all burn to the ground. I can't bear that life anymore.
Yes.
Um,
That's so real.
so yeah.
That's
I
good.
don't. So my experience has been both as a staff member, as a licensed pastor, as a spiritual director in the last 10 years. I'm married to a pastor. I have kids who have their different relationships with the church. And then obviously most of the
Mhm.
people that I communicate with or relate with are either a part of the Big C church or have been at one point.
Mhm.
Both my husband and I have been to seminary, so there was a lot of idealism that we experienced about what the church could be. But I think what I've noticed in, especially working with sixes who have been hurt in the
Mhm.
church, that it's very easy to take that experience and then unconsciously use it to constantly compare to current situations. If there
Yeah.
was a leader I liked, then all the leaders get compared to that leader and they either fall short or they measure up. If there's a leader that I couldn't stand or that I mistrusted or who hurt me, then I'm constantly comparing what other people do. Well, does that mean that they're going to end up being like that? I
Mhm.
can either go like all in or get really skeptical, just kind of depending on the vibe that I get. So I'd love to
Yeah.
know if other sixes feel that way as well. If there's just like this vibe check constantly of like,
Yeah.
are you trustworthy? Are you not?
Yeah.
But sometimes it means that sixes can end up being super loyal to the church because they're
Mhm.
like, I can sort of differentiate, I can hold nuance.
Mhm.
That's a huge
Yeah.
part of a six's work, right? Is to be able to parse out the difference between a feeling and a thought, to not just constantly be looking for the bad guy or who to blame, to not like swing to another end of a spectrum because of an experience or a particular person. So I think when sixes can really do that nuancing work, they can experience stability,
Mhm.
even in hard
That's so good.
situations. Yeah.
Yeah. Sarah, you even allude to something, and part of it is the almost a perspective ability that a six has that I would relate to the inner committee. And sometimes the inner committee can be helpful and sometimes it can be harmful. So, where does that look like, or what does it look like to use the gift of the inner committee for making a choice that's healthier? Maybe it's an upstream practice,
Yeah.
maybe it's a more difficult decision that doesn't isn't necessarily innate. But
Mhm.
how do we work that going, this inner committee could be a curse, but it could also be a blessing, especially as we're
Mhm.
examining these different elements, because you bring up a lot of good points as a sixes,
Mhm.
taking
Hmm.
all of this in and considering.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the inner committee mostly just focuses on thoughts and facts and logic. And what I need is some people at the table, so to speak. Sometimes that actually
Yes.
comes from external relationships, right?
Yeah.
Friends who help me get there, who really care about what are the feelings that are informing those thoughts.
Mm,
That's really hard for me to parse out because
yeah.
I can show emotion to other people, but I'm not aware that I'm feeling it necessarily. So, for
Okay.
instance, I might like, let's just put my dear husband on the stand. He would probably say that he can tell when I'm feeling anxious because I make angry comments or I
Mhm.
criticize more easily or
Yeah.
I verbally process things in this heated way,
Uh-huh.
or I'm very skeptical. So he experiences it as anger. If I can get in touch with that,
Hmm.
what I find usually is I'm not angry, I'm afraid. And I'm
Yeah.
using that to try to energize myself.
Yeah.
Sometimes the deepest work, at least for me, is to allow sadness to quiet the inner committee. Like
Mm,
if I can actually get in touch with grief, if I can get in touch with, oh, I'm sad. Like this actually can't just be fixed
mm,
by overthinking it, by thinking it through. I actually need to take some space to just experience grief. That is the
mm,
quietest the inner committee gets. And I
mm.
actually feel really supported in that quiet, in that grief.
Wow.
I know
Wow.
that's a relationship with God, that's a relationship with
Hmm.
love, but I think I actually feel seen by that inner committee as
That's
well.
big.
And everyone's just going, wow, this is hard. And it's very
Yeah.
calming. And then after the grief, I'm not usually one to stay in it super long. I'm trying to learn how to like stay in it longer. But once that
Yes.
grief can be named, it does feel like only the voices that are really helpful speak up.
That's amazing. So interesting that grief could be a unifier of the voices and inviting all the different parts to see that pain
Mm.
instead of the parts conflicting or
Yes.
contradicting as if
Yes.
we shouldn't, maybe by the bypassing voices that
Yeah.
sometimes come into play, right? But if you just
Hmm.
instead you go, nope, I'm going to acknowledge it, I'm going to sit with it, I'm going
Hmm.
to hold it into the light and the truth of who God is and that he cares and
Yeah.
is holding me and crying with me,
Yes.
that that changes it. So that's really beautiful.
Yes.
Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that. I don't think I've
Mhm.
heard that insight
Oh,
from a
I
six.
love
So
that.
really
I
good.
love
Yeah.
that. You just gave a six a huge compliment.
Oh,
Thank you.
kind of, yeah, totally. Well, thanks for going there because it was a little bit off script, but
Sure.
I think it's an important differentiator for the Enneagram Six in particular, just as the inner critic is for the one,
Yeah.
because those do play a large part of the story
Yeah.
that not every type experiences.
Yeah.
One of the things that has been a conversation also recently with a couple of gals who are coming to a realization that they're type six is that there is a lot of there is a lot of work to be done around benevolent detachment. And part of that is
Mhm.
what you talked about before, wanting everybody to be helped, not necessarily to be the helper,
Yeah.
but owning some aspect of that when others are struggling or going through
Mhm.
crisis. And so that often is a pain point in connection with community and the church,
Mhm.
either because
Mhm.
it's been overused
Yeah.
or demanded or required at some level.
Mm.
And so, how does a six parse that out, especially as a pastor's wife, spiritual director, but all the
Mhm.
different roles that you've played through the years in community?
Like, how do I handle like what is a healthy role to play or healthy
Yeah.
expectations? Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Uh, um, I have found that my own expectations are a large part of my experience with grief and disappointment. I'm
Mm,
not always aware of the expectations of others, but I am aware of the difference between um, anxiety that comes from like a performance-based community versus a
Yeah.
more contemplative community.
Mm,
So one of the things that has just kind of really impacted my experience in the church has been some groups that we were a part of that were focusing on spiritual friendship. We're focusing on the kinds of like soul conversations in community where honesty, truth telling is a huge part of it, but then so is forgiving and releasing each other.
mm,
And this was not a movement of like, all right, you have to share your deepest, darkest secret all the time or anything like that. They were communities that were based on like weekly connection,
mm.
structured, prayerful, honest, bless you, move on kind of thing. And I've
Yeah.
found that that is a place where I could really parse out the difference between my detachment that comes from self-protection. Like if I can tell that
Mm,
someone's got I have kind of a radar for like, ooh, is this person a safe person or not? Pretty easy for me to just, oh, I'm just going to back up a little bit, not going to give that person too much of my energy or resources because they will take. That is
yeah.
not holy indifference. That is self-protection,
Right.
versus the courage that it takes to offer something and then let go, or to actually say hard no's or hard goodbyes. That kind of ability to sort of
Mm,
manage, I don't have to reject you or even change you in order to be close or distance myself healthily from you. I can be healthily differentiated from you. I think being in a community where we talk about those types of things weekly, regularly, we're honest with
yeah.
ourselves and with God. We look at our self-protection, we look at the things that the motives behind our actions, etc. Like that has been a very healing way of
Mm,
experiencing loving community to me. So
wow.
I think it can be pretty easy for me to be self-protective and call it health. And that's not nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so you used a phrase that I think is important for you to just to give a moment to, because I imagine possibly my friend heard you say performance community versus
Mhm.
genuine community. I think those are the phrases you maybe used. Give us just a flash of maybe we haven't thought about it in that way before, or just consideration. Am I in
Mhm.
a performance community or a genuine community? And how is that changing how I show up or feel safe
Yeah.
even?
Yeah. I think I said contemplative community,
Thank
which
you.
probably
Yes,
isn't
that
the
is,
right word. I
I
think
like
genuine
it.
community
It
is a
works
better
good.
word. uh,
I'm here for it. It's what we're creating here.
I think, yeah, a performance-based community to me is a place where there's a lot of emphasis on what things look like, a lot of emphasis on who is special, who has
Mm,
skills, who has gifts, like how productive and efficient everyone is. These are not more, this is not a moral judgment. It's just that for me as a six, that really can pull me into this feeling that being special, being significant,
mm,
sticking out above everybody else is the most important thing. And that kind of
wow.
pulls at the innate gift that God gave the six, which is like, no, we're together. Like
Yeah.
let's hold each other and be together. And so when I've been a part of communities where maybe there's maybe the leaders are three, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of health in that as far as like, hey, we need to do things with excellence and we don't just sit around talking about things all day. Like, let's actually get some things done. But when I've been a part of unhealthy communities where there was a lot of emphasis on what things look like, who was in, who was out, who was special, who was needed at the moment, but then later they're not, that is anxiety
Yeah.
producing for me. But I've been a part of other communities where it seemed like there was a desire to go a little slower, to appreciate, again, the word nuance, like appreciate the
Mm,
distinction or the nuance that each unique person offers in a community, and to make decisions based on need or based on, as a community, where are we going? Let's go there together. Let's not leave anyone behind or push people to the side because they're not important or they shouldn't be a part of this, etc. So, yeah, I think
that's
some of
good.
those groups that I've been a part of, I mentioned before, Oh, like Jason and I offered a group when we first moved to the Springs for singles over 30. And we met weekly, we had dinner together, we had some of these real soul conversations. We created a safe place so that there wasn't like fixing each other or breaking
Hmm.
confidentiality, et cetera. At least we tried to. And there was
Hmm.
something about that that was very leveling. It wasn't like, oh, you're the pastor, and so we're going to be here to listen to you. And we're just going to receive what you want. There was like, no, I'm going to answer this same question with you. And
Yes.
we're going to talk about things appropriately, but together. And that's
Yeah.
really important to me as a six, that I feel like, hey, you can mess up, you can sin, you can fail, and we will work through that together. We will hold you when you need to be
Mm.
held, and you're going to be holding someone when they need to be held too. And we have somewhere we're going together.
That is rich, Sarah. Honestly, I think I'll just say here, you gave me language for something that I felt and tried to create and tried to find.
Mhm.
And you parsed that out really well. And I know a number of my friends who would probably listen to this conversation going, yes, that is it. And as the, over the years, I've constantly invited the community to contemplative practices. But when you say contemplative community, that is it. The going slower, the pausing, the waiting, the seeing, inviting others to that process
Mhm.
to go deep because the contemplative itself requires you to go deep instead of
Yeah.
rushing and
Yeah.
maybe going big,
Yeah. And it requires
which,
honesty too, which is
yes.
very easy to, lose when you're just going fast. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Which
Mm.
our culture loves and celebrates. And
Yeah.
to your point, fast isn't always bad, but is it the
Right.
best
Right.
for us for the soul care that we need, for the soul growth that I hope we long for and
Yes.
desire,
Yeah.
but we definitely need. So
Yeah.
this is really good. There's just so many things.
I know. I'm
I
like,
love
oh, I love this. It's
it.
too short. It's too
Yes,
short.
I know.
Thanks.
Okay, a couple more questions
Okay.
as we round out, and
Okay.
I want to hear maybe as someone who uh, has sat with maybe others in their hardest moments.
Mhm.
Maybe you would have something specific to say that you think a six would need to hear or that would be helpful to hear in those moments. And what would that look like?
Well, a couple of things. It was a few years into my exploration of Enneagram knowledge before I came across the defense mechanism of splitting. And that was really helpful for me personally to recognize that I do that a lot. Probably even more than like projection, I will do splitting, meaning there's some unconscious work that I'm trying to do mentally to find out like who is safe, who is not, who is good, who is not, who's on the right side of things, who's on the wrong side of things, so that I can place myself against that thing or for that thing. And I think that happens with God all the time, right? So it is easy for us as sixes to also split God. And for some people, that means like God is always safe. I can always go to God. But then unconsciously, there's this sense of like, but I'm not God, so I'm bad. And a real
Wow.
tendency towards shame, or vice versa. Someone who maybe has been disappointed in the church or disappointed because God didn't do something the way they think that God should. And so God is bad. And now I can't trust
Hmm.
God at all. But that's still
Wow.
splitting, right? And so the call
Yeah.
to the six in health is understand that there is mystery here.
Mm.
There's something more than what we can just parse out into these little boxes. And so I think that's helped me in my relationship with God and with people who are looking for like how do I trust and who do I trust? But also I think the words of Julian Norwich, and I know this wasn't just about comfort. This was actually about like sin and hardship in the world, but those words from Julian Norwich where she received this revelation of the love of God and just heard this voice saying all shall be well. If I ever get a tattoo, that's what I'm getting because there's something
Yes.
about sitting with that, letting it go deep inside. It is my deepest yearning that all shall be well, that we are held,
Mm-hmm.
that there is good here, that it's gonna be okay. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
recognizing where my splitting is keeping me from looking to God and hearing that voice of love saying, I'm here. I've got
Mm.
you. Like there is good happening. There is a plan here. I have not abandoned you. That means a lot to me as a six.
Wow, that is beautiful. I'm so grateful that you brought this element up because this is something that a lot of our conversations can't go as deeply for time and just
Mm,
experience, and that you could name that so well. On
mm.
a practical note,
Yeah.
as maybe a friend who's listening who has their lens is a six, and that's they maybe they even had it clarified in this conversation of like, oh, this explains everything. This gives me language I didn't have before. I see what I didn't see before. But what is a practical thing to try in the relationship with the Lord or even
Mm.
community? Our hope for this process, the wholehearted
Yeah.
Enneagram, is that it is for transformation, not just
Yeah.
to name where we are, where we find ourselves, but where do we go from here?
Yeah. Probably two practical things I can offer that are helpful to me. One is when feeling anxious or disturbed or some sort of like desolation, like I just can't, I'm feeling upset or restless, parsing out the difference between narratives and emotions is huge. So a
Mm,
simple question like, what's the story I'm telling myself? Or what's the image that I have of God right now? What's the narrative I have about this person or this situation or about myself right now
mm,
is huge. Like that's a thought. And then
yes, it
parsing
is.
that out from what am I feeling? And then, secondly, a practical thing is once I'm able to distinguish, like, oh, there's some thoughts I'm having about a person, about myself, about a situation. I have found the welcoming prayer. Do you know this? I don't know if Thomas Merton or it's often attributed to someone named Mary Mrzowski, but it's called the welcoming prayer. You can Google it.
Mm,
And it just simply walks through this liturgy of I welcome every person, every thought, every
mm,
feeling because I know it's for my healing. I let go of the desire for security. I usually have to say that a lot of times.
yes,
I let go of
yes.
the desire for approval, for control, and then finally you move into I open myself to the love and presence of God and the
Mm,
healing action and grace within. So that sort of release of my desires, my control, my disturbance, my need for security, and then falling back into,
mm.
oh, I receive the love and the presence of God, which is holding me together. Even just that practical prayer has helped me like breathe through some
That's
things
big.
and yeah, feel more settled.
Wow. That is gold, Sarah. I know that my friend listening is going to go Google the welcoming prayer or AI it, whatever
Right. It'll
we're
come
doing
fast.
these days.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I think, one of the reasons that I've loved the church there in the Springs is the practice of liturgy as a congregation. And I know you love these prayers that are pre-written and pre-designed, and you just demonstrated owning it and taking the parts that you need many times. And that's the gift of liturgy. That's the gift of written prayer, is that
Yeah.
it's not trite, it's not rote, it is
Yeah.
using words to help give us language for things we
Yeah.
cannot express on our own.
Yes.
And
And I
that
love
was
thinking
beautifully
like someone
said.
prayed this prayer, like someone else, probably many other people have said these same words,
Yes.
feeling the same way I'm feeling. It feels so communal to me. Yeah.
It is. It is grounding, communal, and remembering, oh, yeah, if God has taken care of them before, he
Yeah.
will take care and meet
Yes.
me here in this moment right now.
Yes. Yes. We're
So,
safe. Yeah.
yes, yes. Sarah, I know you and I could talk for hours, just all the different shared loves and the commonalities. And this was really beautiful. And I think ties up the month for the Enneagram Six in such a way that I couldn't orchestrate because we started with a little bonus episode with my daughter, Paige, who had been debating is she a six or
Oh.
seven? And, just some of that
Mm.
conversation and just tying
Mhm.
into you of how those parts of us, it's not so myopic or siloed. Those parts of us
Yeah.
really play in the story. And I think you demonstrate what that looks like
Yes.
for you as you've
Oh, yay.
practiced and processed and all of that. So
Thanks.
beautiful.
Thanks. Thank you
Thank
for
you so
having
much
me.
for
Thanks
being
for the
here.
opportunity. This is lovely for me too. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining me for the Wholehearted Enneagram podcast. If this conversation spoke to you, please share it with a friend. You can also visit simplywholehearted.com to take the free Enneagram quiz and also get your personalized podcast playlist specific for your Enneagram type. And remember, friend, your starting point doesn't have to be your stuck point.